Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second webinar. On our first webinar with Hannah, we went briefly through the foundations of the open data approach, benefits of open EHR, case of Finland, and how they are building an open ecosystem. We have also discussed digital health platform and application development using the low-code and no-code tools. We believe that vertical development tools are needed for healthcare. And not only that, the key is in the data foundation, as the acceleration does not only come from the tools, but also from the clinical content that is already available through open EHR. Many of you have mentioned that they would like to see how these tools work in practice, and today we will show it. My guest for today is my colleague Boris with me. Hi Boris and welcome.
Hello.
Boris is our product lead for EHR Studio, the application building environment which we will use today in order to create two applications without any coding at all. The first one is a MAS tool, an assessment that identifies adults who are malnourished or at risk of malnutrition. It is widely used in the UK and US, but also globally. This will be a web-based application intended for hospital clinical staff. The second one is a patient-facing mobile application, a diabetes tracker that allows users to track regular hemoglobin, sugar levels, blood pressure, and so on. During the development of both applications, Boris will show us some of the simple stuff, drag and drop development, but also some more advanced features, like the easy integration with third-party APIs in order to bring the data to the application from other systems with just a few clicks. He will also show us how easily we can extract the data from the EHR database without knowing query language. As we are doing this live, please bear with us in case of any glitches. Before we start, I would like to invite you to complete our survey by going to menti.com and entering the code. If you have any questions, you may write us on chat and our team will reply. Two applications to be developed, limited time, so let's start. Boris, the canvas is yours.
Hello and welcome to our webinar. I'm Boris Marn, the product manager of EHR Studio. During this webinar, we will introduce you to our low-code application building environment, where we will show you how fast it is to create applications. We will also show you how agile it is, because you don't need to redeploy the changes every time that you make them. And we will also show you how you can do all of this without writing any line of code. Okay? And we'll use App Builder for this. This App Builder, this is a tool that allows doctors or clinicians or even IT personnel and programmers to create patient or doctor-facing applications. During this webinar, we will create a MAS tool completely from scratch. This is a malnutrition universal screening assessment tool that assesses the patients that are malnourished or at risk of being malnourished. We chose this assessment because it is one of the most common assessment tools on the market. So I hope you will be familiar with it. And we also chose it because it has a lot of advanced calculations. And we really want to show you the power of this tool. Okay, let's start. And now we are in our App Builder editor. Now, instead of you writing the lines of code, what this editor does is it allows you to pick the components from a predefined set and simply drag them to the canvas. And once you have them on the canvas, you can then change labels, change their configuration, their layout, or their size. You can also click this Content tab and change the content of these components. And you can also click the interactions. And what these interactions do is they make this and other fields respond to the change entered by the user. Okay, and this App Builder is also coupled with the layouting system, where you can define all the columns and rows, and then you can distribute fields among these columns and rows. What we will do is we will write the input fields on the left side, and then the scoring and the assessment will be on the right side. And let's first start by simply naming this tool. And let me copy the name. and add it here. Heading 1. Great. We have our name. So this is the first step. To get all the fields on the canvas, we will use our Malnutrition Universal Screening Tool template. This is an open EHR template. It is publicly accessible and it will help us get started. We need 4 input fields for the end user to fill in. The first one is the weight of the patient. The second one is the height of the patient. The third one is also the weight of the patient, but not the current weight, but the weight that the patient had 3 to 6 months ago. Okay, and I can just easily change the label by clicking on it and writing text. Okay, the fourth input is the acute disease effect score. Let me just change the presentation from the Bratton group into radios that are distributed among one column. Okay, these are my 4 input fields. And as I said, on the right side, we will see the score of this assessment and also the next steps. Before we create the whole application, I just want us to make the prototype. This makes sense because the prototype is sometimes, it's always much faster, and you can also do it together with the end user. And then he can immediately give you feedback, and then you can go back home and add all the logic. And we will mock the score of this assessment. Let me make it a heading 1. And we will say that this is always 4. And let's also add the assessment that I will just copy here. So for the prototype, it will always be high risk assessment. Okay, this is our prototype and we can preview it. Once we are on the preview screen, we can change some configuration. We can see all the values that are present here, and we can also start writing inputs immediately and even test it if everything corrects as it should. You can also change the presentation. For example, you can see how this application would look like on the tablet or on the mobile phone. And now that I'm using the mobile presentation, I want you to be aware of something. This score and the assessment are below the input fields. They are no longer on the right side. This is because the app actually responds to the device it is used in. So it looks differently on mobile, on tablet, or on desktop devices. We made it in a way that it is responsive and it should look good on any device. Okay, and let's go back to our desktop. There is one other thing I want us to do. I want us to create a mock patient banner. And we will just mock the data. We will say that this is always John Doe, 3, and let's say that he was born very recently, on the 2nd of February, and let's say that he is a male. Okay, let's preview it. So we have a simple mock patient banner. After that, we will connect it to external resource, get the data from it, so we won't always have this John Doe here. Okay, our prototype is done. Let us now start with the calculations. The first calculation that we will do is the body mass index calculation. And to do the calculation, we will need this interaction step. More specifically, the dependencies. These dependencies, they are a tool that can describe the conditions on how to show or hide, make some fields required or read-only, make some logical transitions, navigations, validations, etc. So in a way, this is a replacement of you writing code. And it is made in a way that also the non-programmers will be able to use it and also understand it. Okay, our body mass index, we can only calculate it when the weight and the height are entered. So let's start writing our first when clause. When the weight is entered, and also when the height is entered, this means not empty, then our body mass index is simply weight divided by height times height times 0.0001. Okay, this is our formula. Now you might notice that I'm very versed at writing these dependencies. But for the new users and for the users that want to learn more about it, what we have is our expression assistant. And here in the expression assistant, you can see all the functions that you can use on your dependencies. For the people that are used to using Excel functions, you will notice that these functions have the same name and the same arguments as Excel. So we made it familiar to the Excel users. And we support all the Excel functions and a couple of more functions that are more pertinent to the healthcare domain. Because in the end, our app builder is a healthcare app builder. Okay, we have our body mass index. And from this body mass index, we need to calculate the score. If the patient's BMI is more than 20, then his score is 0. If the patient's BMI is between 18.5 and 20, then his score is 1. And if the patient's BMI is below 18.5, then the score is 2. Okay, so let's calculate this again by using dependencies. If the body mass index is more than 20, then our body mass index score is of course more than 20. Makes sense, right? If the body mass index is below or equal to 20, but not higher than 18.5, then our score is between 18.5 and 20. Okay, and for the third criteria, if the body mass index is below 18.5, then our body mass index score is below 18.5. Okay, we have our body mass index and we have our body mass index score. Now we also need to calculate the weight loss score. And before we calculate the weight loss score, I want us also to calculate the weight loss factor. Weight loss factor. So here in this field, we will calculate how big of a percentage of weight the patient lost between now and 3 to 6 months ago. So again, the dependencies, very similar to the body mass index. We can only calculate the weight loss factor when the weight is entered, and also when the weight 3 to 6 months ago is entered. Then our weight loss factor is equal to 100 minus 100 times weight divided by weight 3 to 6 months ago. Okay, we have our weight loss factor. Now let us calculate the weight loss score from this. If the patient lost less than 5% of his weight, then the score is 0. If he lost between 5 and 10% of the weight, then the score is 1. But if he lost more than 10% of his weight, then the score is 2. So again, if the weight loss factor is less than 5, then our weight loss score is less than 5. If the weight loss factor is more than 5, but not above 10, then our weight loss score is between 5 and 10. And if the patient lost more than 10% of his weight, then our weight loss score is above 10%. Okay, we have our weight loss score, we have our body mass index score, and we have our acute disease effect score. And to calculate the score of this MAST tool, we just need to sum up these three values and then present them to the end user. To do the summation, we're going to use a variable that I will call score. What these variables are is they are meta structures that are part of the application, but they don't reside on the canvas. And then when you have these variables, you can use them whenever you want. So this source of the score is internally defined. This means that we will define it, and it will be a number. Let's save it. Okay, now let's do the calculation. As I said, it is just the simple summation of these three scores, and we can only calculate it when these three scores are entered, or more specifically, they are not empty. So acute disease effect score should not be empty, the body mass index score should not be empty, and the weight loss score should also not be empty. Then this variable that we created is simply just the summation of these three fields. So this one plus this one plus this one. Okay, we have our variable. Now we need to present it to the user. So instead of always having this 4 here, I will just press the add button and I will see all the variables that I can use in my rich text editor. And of course, I need a score. Okay, and now we can preview it immediately. These 4 input fields, they are not really important for the end user. So I will simply just make them hidden. So let's hide this field. Let's also hide this field. Let's hide this field and also this field. Okay. And now we can test this scoring if it works. So I have 80 kilograms. My height is 180 centimeters. And I used to have also 80 kilograms. And let's say I'm acutely ill. You see, my score is now 2. But if I'm not acutely ill, then of course my score is 0. But the problem I see here is that I'm always in the high risk assessment category. So we also need to add the other risk assessments, and we also need to show them depending on the score. So let us first just add other 2 risk assessments. And again, I will copy this text, so I won't make a mistake. Medium risk and the low risk assessment. If the score of the patient is more than or equal to 2, then he's in a high risk category. If the score is 1, then he's in the medium risk. And if the score is 0, then he's in the low risk category. So again, let's add a nice dependency. If this score is more than or equal to 2, then we want to show this high risk assessment. Otherwise, we want to hide it. If the score, the score is equal to 1, then we want to show this medium risk assessment. Otherwise, we want to hide it. And if the score is equal to 0, Then we show the low risk assessment. Otherwise, we want to hide this low risk assessment. Okay? And you can see immediately, I'm in the low risk category. If I am acutely ill, then I'm in the high risk category. And let's say that I lost 7 pounds, 7 kilograms. Then I'm in the medium risk category. And this is actually our working malnutrition universal screening tool application. And there is maybe one other thing that we need to do. You see this John Doe? You know, all the patients are not called the John Doe. And also they aren't born on the 2nd of February. And not all of them are male. So we need to provide the user with the proper patient data. And to do this, we will query an external resource, an external server, get the data from it, and show it on our application. This is a little more advanced topic, but it still doesn't need any writing of code. What we need is an external API, and let's create a new one. And we will call our Fire server. And our first call will simply be get patient. And now I need the URL of this server. And let me add it here. Now you might notice that I still hard-coded the ID of the patient. This is because during this webinar, we won't create the whole patient list. But believe me, it is easy to externalize this variable and then use it as a dynamic part of this URL. Okay, let's initialize this API call. And when we initialize it, we learned from this external resource. We actually queried it, got the data from there, and learned from it. And we can start using it immediately. I will create 2 variables. The first variable will have the name, the first name, and the last name. The second variable will have the birth date of the patient and the gender of the patient. And again, we use the variables. The first variable will be name. It will be internally defined by us. It will be a string. And its value will be this data that we got from EHR server. So we click this API, and then we find the property that we want. First, we only want the given name of the patient, then some empty white space, and then also the family name of the patient. Okay, and let's save it. And now I can use it immediately in my rich text. Name, I call it name. Okay. The second variable will have the birth date and the gender. So I will call it additional data, again, internally defined by us. It is of type string. And we need the birth date from the patient, some empty white space, and then the gender. Oops. Okay, and let's try it. You see, this patient is no longer John Doe. He is Ezzy Corin. He was born. Oh, I made a mistake. I forgot to bind the data. So additional data is the variable I'm using. Okay, now we can see this is Ezzy Corin. She is a female and she was born very recently. We actually got the data from an external server. So if you're in a hospital environment, you surely have a lot of servers and resources, and you can get the data from them. And it is very easy to do without writing any code.
Boris, thank you. There is actually, I guess, at this point, one question that we can perhaps answer. So what steps are needed in order to publish and use this in a production environment? So how does this come actually to the doctors or clinical staff?
Yeah, this is also very simple to do. But before you can show this to anyone, of course, first you must publish it. And I will add the name must application. There are two ways how you can use this. One is that you can simply embed your app and you just copy this HTML and you can paste it to your HTML file. You can use it as part of your ecosystem and it is completely framework independent. So if you're using Angular or React or Vue.js or any other your own framework that you have, you can use this and you can embed it whenever you want. This is our first scenario. The second one is that we will show it as part of our application called Portal. And I have it here, and let me log into it. And I will just quickly show it, what it does. It is a basic portal with a lot of nice additions where you have patient list that you can then select the patient from and maybe start the assessment for him. And here we can see this must application that we just created. Okay, but if you're using this as part of our portal, you probably don't want to have the patient banner here. And I will just simply remove it and publish it again. And now if I refresh this portal, you see I don't see the patient banner. So immediately the changes that you create, when you publish them, you can see immediately the changes in your end application. So there are two ways of how to do this. For the second, very interesting scenario is I would, frequently in the hospital environment, we remeasure the data too many times. For example, my height is the same now as it was 5 years ago and as it was 10 years ago. So some of the data you don't have to measure every time. Also sometimes, for example, this weight 3 to 6 months ago, you need to ask the patient what was his weight back then. And he maybe doesn't remember it. So what we will do here is we will show the histories of patients' weight. We will show them, and then you can choose from them and select them. We're going to do this again by using our variables. I will call my variable simply get weight. This variable source will be an AQL. This is our EHR server query language. And we also have a tool for this. I will just click this plus, and I will go to our AQL builder, where I will select the date measured for the patient and also his weight. So I need the date measured, and I will just change the alias, date measured. And also I need the patient's weight. And now if I run it, I can see the patient's weight and when it was measured. Then I can use this variable. But let us first add a column list here. And this column list will show us all the rows of this weight for the patient. Let me first do the headers. First column will be called date measured. And it will tell us when this weight was measured. The second column will be the weight, and I also want to make it bold. The third column will just have a simple select button. And I want to position it on the right side. Okay, we have our column list. Now we need to bind the data from this AQL variable that we created to this list. And we just click this content tab, say that the data source is AQL variable, but it can be also any external API. But for this demo, we need an AQL variable get weight. And the source are simple, the list of all the values. Okay, our date measured will be this date measured that we queried. And our weight will be simply the weight, but we want the both parts, the magnitude part and also the units part. Okay, and here I immediately see some data. But if you look at this, this date, you know, it is not properly formatted. It is actually very ugly. So I want to format it better. And to do this, I will use our expression assistant, more specifically date function format date. And I want to format this date measured. And the format will be year, 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 month, month, day, day. Okay, let's finish it. And immediately I can see it. And if I go to the preview, I can see all the values. Now I need to make this button useful because currently it doesn't do anything. When the user will click this button, the data from this row will be populated to this input. And let's do it by using a numeric field that will be weight, but only the magnitude part. I want to hide it from the end user. And I want to say that its content is simply just the magnitude part. Okay, now, whenever the user will click this button, we want to populate this input field with the data from this magnitude part. Okay, I made a small mistake. I want to populate this input field with the data from this magnitude part. Okay, and now I can test it. If I click this select button, you will see the 80 kilograms are now populated in this input field. If I select here, then I will see 81 kilograms. And if I select here, I will see 55 kilograms. So it works. But I don't want to show this list every time. I only want to show it on demand. And what I will do is I will add the button show patient's weight history. I will position this button on the right side. And I will say that every time the user clicks this button, then I want to toggle the visibility of this column list. At the start, this column list will be hidden. And when somebody will click this select button, then I also want to hide this column list. Now, if I go to the preview, you see I don't see the histories of patients' weight. Only when I click this button and when I pick, for example, 83 kilograms, then again, I won't see the patient's weight history. So I think this is a nice UX addition. We created a whole application in 30 minutes. And I really hope you now understand how powerful this tool is and what you can do with it without writing any code.
Boris, thanks. Maybe again to jump to the questions. So they're kind of a connected connections. Is it possible to publish through stages environments to promote a set of changes? And is it possible to integrate the release process with continuous integration services?
Yes, of course. This is one of the frequent things you can do. That's why we have projects here. So you can have a development project, a testing project, and a production projects. And then you simply move these applications between them. So yeah, we offer you this.
And maybe one other quick question. I know that we also have a design system that we are introducing, that there isn't a lot of design tools available, such as colors, animations, shape moving, etc. Can you adapt the application to fit other systems, UI, backgrounds, colors, etc.?
Yes, if you're using our form renderer, this is what you will actually use when you will embed the application. You can customize the CSS completely. And we also offer you a couple of ideas on what to do. We have a couple of examples that you can look at, and maybe from these examples do this. But yeah, CSS is completely customizable.
Great, Boris. So I guess we've finished the first application, right?
Yes.
So we can move to the second one. So mobile application, diabetes tracker.
Yes. I want to show you something very different on the second demo. I will show you our blood sugar tracking application that will simply track your blood sugar levels. You can add certain tags there, add some medications that you're currently using. It will provide you with a blood sugar log where you can observe the trends and decide on this information on how you can treat your diabetes. It can also provide the doctor with all the necessary information for effective diabetes treatment. This application is very different. It has 6 pages because the previous demo was only 1 page, but this one is 6 pages, and during this demo we will create also 1 more page, so it will have 7 pages. It is still a prototype, and it is patient-centric. And if I click the preview, you will also notice that this application is a mobile-first application. So it was made for mobile devices. I will just quickly walk you through this application so you will see what kind of things it does. The first 3 pages are just the settings pages where you can set your certain things about you. For example, you can provide this application with the gender, with what kind of blood sugar units you want to use and the weight units, etc. You can also see the blood sugar levels, the bottom, the top, and the target value. You can add certain sensitivity coefficients or what kind of insulin are you taking. And you can also measure your blood score relating to the carbohydrate intake. This is what we call the breath units. And you can also add some coefficients provided to you by the doctor here. And these are the first 3 settings pages. And this is our main page, but I want to use a different user for this demo. Store data. Let me just wait so it refreshes. Okay, this is my user, and here I can see the logs of all the measurements. So what was my blood sugar levels? What was the date of the measurement? I tagged it with excitement and with what kind of medications I'm using. And here we can also see the general mood. We can add a new record where we write our blood sugar levels, and let's say they are very high because I ate a chocolate 1 hour ago. Our condition is excellent. We're taking insulin and we're very excited. And now if I save this data, now I can see it here. We also have the statistics where you can select the date and see how many of the measurements are high, how many of them normal, and how many of them low. This is also our highest measurement and our lowest measurement. And we also see the advice here that we should lose weight if you are overweight. This is a quick demo of application. And what I want to do is I want to create a new page, charts, where I will show you how you can differently present the data. The first presentation will be very straightforward. And what we will present to you is the number of high measurements, the number of normal measurements, and the number of low measurements. And to present it, I already created the variable that I'm just going to use as the default value of this input field. So variable count high. For the normal measurements, I will just pick the variable count normal. And for the low measurements, I will just pick the variable count low. And now if I click the preview, I can see just simply the summation of these measurements. This is the straightforward approach. You can use these components to show the measurements. I will also make them read-only because I certainly don't want somebody to change them. And now you can't change them. This is the first presentation. For the second presentation, we will use a widget that we will download from our store. This store is a public repository of widgets. And we currently offer you some of the charts, a slider, and the editor. It is possible to create these widgets if you are a programmer and publish them on this public repository and then start using them immediately. What we will need is a simple pie chart widget that we will install in our app builder. And then we can simply add it to the canvas. I will make it a little bigger and I will position it in the center. Now I just need to bind the data from these variables into this widget. And for this, I need this content tab. I will say that I need the normal measurement, which is, of course, again, this variable count normal. I also need the high measurement. That is, again, this variable count high. And I also want to present the low measurements. That are this variable low. Okay. And now if I go on the preview, I forgot to edit. Now if I go to the preview, I can see there is one normal measurement, one low measurement, and 5 high measurements. Maybe I should look at it how it looks like on a mobile device. And I will also remove this legend. And here, this is the second presentation. You don't have to present all the data with simple input fields. You can use widgets. You can also create your own widgets. This is the second presentation. For the third presentation, I want to introduce you to our HTML element. And before we do the presentation, I just want to give you a quick demo of what this HTML element is. It is a simple HTML code that you can write in here and then see it. I will first copy a simple advice. And I will show it here. So now I can see the advice. You can write any HTML here you want. For the second use case, this will be the third presentation. I will add a different kind of presentation that will have 3 panels. And if you see these variables, they're actually the variables that you can provide to this HTML. We offer you a complete templating engine, and you can get very creative if you know HTML. and it will look like this, but I hadn't provided these variables with the value. So I'm also going to do this. This number of high, its value is simply number of high. This number of normal is simply the value number of normal. And this number of low is simply the number. Now I can see the presentation in panels. So we offer you 3 ways of how you can present this input. And I still haven't shown you how you can navigate between these pages. And I'm going to create a simple back button. And let's call it back. That will navigate us to the home screen. Whenever the user will click this back button, then we want to navigate the user to the home screen. And also on the home page, I want to add another menu item that I will call, close this, that I will call charts. And whenever the user will click this charts, then we want to navigate him to the charts page that we created. Okay? And now if I go to the preview and see this as a mobile device, okay, then I can click these charts and go to the page I created. We can of course also go back whenever we want. This is our second demo.
Great, Boris. So there are a couple of questions that we can still have time, I guess, to reply. So one of the questions is, can users add new widgets specific for their organization or use case? Due to competitive advantages and better UI, is it possible to have client-specific widget store?
Currently, we have one store, but because this wasn't yet needed by other users, but this is no problem. This is a very small server and you can publish, you have it on your local instance and then you can use your own widgets. This is not something that is really a problem. But in the end, we are open EHR, you know, we want to be public, but we can do this.
Yeah, thank you. Before going to the further questions, I would like to kindly invite you again to go to menti.com and enter the code on the screen to do another bit survey. The tracker app that Boris has just developed, you can try it on the link, the second link. And the third link, if you would like to apply and try to use for the tools, currently we have a kind of a beta preview. You can apply on the third link or just send me an email and we'll fix a meeting and the access to it. One interesting question, Boris, that was also kind of addressed, I guess, in the previous webinar, but maybe from a different perspective. So what makes this solution different than other solutions like Power Apps, OutSystems, and similar? How do you see it as a developer?
Well, this is a healthcare app building environment. So it's made for healthcare personnel. It has a lot of advanced calculations that, you know, things like Power App, they have it, but it's not made in a way that is more congenial to the healthcare environment. And we also are open EHR compliant. This means that the data model is public and reusable. And this app builder, you know, this data model is really our first-class citizen. And other low-code application building environments simply don't have this.
Thank you, Boris. One more question. I'm not sure if you'll be able to address it. We asked also for a bit of a clarification. Is it possible to upload sensible images as input data that must be completely removed from device mobile?
Well, you can externalize the images. As you remember, we connected to the external server and got the data from there. You can also get pictures from there. You can also, from external servers, maybe I forgot to tell this, but you can also update the data there. You can publish new data and you can also delete it. So yeah, if you have some resources on specific location, they don't have to really be part of the application. They can be part of this external resource. I hope I answered this.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if other replies come on this subject. There is one more question. I guess Andraž is going to answer to it. It's a bit more technical. We've managed to answer with Andraž to more or less all of the questions. Some of them will be addressed via the email. At this point, so I would like to thank you, Boris, for showing us actually how the tool works and creating these two applications. I'm again inviting you to fill the survey, try the Tracker app, and if you would like to try the tools, also go to the sandbox link and apply. We'll see you on Thursday, where our colleague Andraž is going to do a bit more of a development and technical presentation of the digital health platform. And yeah, see you on Thursday then. Goodbye.